I don't think people realize just how important Infant Annihilator have been to the modern scene of metal, and in this video I am going to attempt to go over the importance of Infant Annihilator. And I know this video is probably going to spark some controversy because there are a lot of people that really fucking hate on this band and don't like them, and that's perfectly fine if you don't enjoy them, if you don't get anything out of them, or if you just think they're downright goofy and silly and a mockery to metal, which, to be fair, that's their entire shtick, that's the entire characters that they play. They bring a lot of levity to metal, and that is a big part of the reason that I think they are very important. Because metal can be a little bit too serious for its own taste, and it doesn't really like to stray away from that. And I think that's a big reason that Electric Callboy have built up so much support, is they go beyond the boundaries of what you typically imagine for metal, and they still make kick-ass music. And I want to emphasize that because that is very important. At their core, Infant Annihilator are very talented musicians that can make some great stuff. But when you first saw them burst on the scene, you had a lot of people saying they aren't metal or they are a scourge to metal. And then you also had the controversy where they were being banned from streaming platforms even though there were more gruesome and obscene things on the platform, and their music videos were very harsh with nudity and graphicness and just a ton of fun shit that they really did put on the nose. So that's one thing. It's good to have a metal band, or it's good to have metal bands that provide sort of this contrast to the very serious demeanor that metal oftentimes takes on. That's sort of the avatar of metal and sort of the skeleton that it's built up from the ground of. But the most important thing, and I think some people really do undersell this, is the influence that Infant Annihilator had on what I call the loudness war, or alternatively, breakdowns. Throughout the late 2010s, or the mid to late 2010s going into the 2020s, it became increasingly more popular and even sought after for bands to continuously up the ante and make breakdowns heavier, make them as chunky as possible, and make the compositions that were as shocking and stank-face inducing as possible. It garnered a lot of support from streamers and YouTubers that would do reaction content and be making like the oh my god face with like a red arrow pointing towards them, and everyone would want to see the reactions of these people that were listening to it because it was always how heavy can we get, how loud can we get, how fast can we get. And when a band like Infant Annihilator comes on with like Blasphemian and there's like two massive fucking breakdowns at different points, it starts to become clear that when you see a modern band like say Jiluka or Lorna Shore that are including multiple breakdowns in their music, Infant Annihilator's influence on the act of making things as heavy and huge as possible cannot be understated. Because as someone that frequented metalcore and deathcore, especially when Infant Annihilator were gaining their stride, I really didn't see many other bands doing these multi-breakdown songs and trying to be as heavy as possible. There were definitely bands that were challenging the conceptions of normality or what could be accepted or appropriate with metalcore or deathcore, and there were tons, hundreds of very heavy breakdowns. But Infant Annihilator were taking it to the next level and sort of transcending the genre with pure obscenity, with BPM that were unheard of, with technicality and efficiency that was just off the fucking chain. It was off the rails, it was insane and manic, with these insanely busy compositions that seemed unending and relentless, and the second you feel like you were about to get a breather, they'd hit you with a fucking breakdown that was the size of 15 skyscrapers coming down on you at once. The sheer weight of their production, as well as how they approached hyper-sanitized production in a deathcore light, was also something that I think influenced a lot of bands that came after, because they not only showed that you could sound very mechanical and very engineered and well produced, but still have a human edge and touch. And people ate that shit up, but it also divided the fandom of metal just as a whole, especially metalcore and deathcore fans. And that's saying a lot because metalcore and deathcore have always injected other things into the formula, have always experimented with what was acceptable or not acceptable, and when you had this band challenging the conceptions of what was normal or what was like the norm in the genre, you could see this have influence on so many other bands. And that's not even talking about like music videos of people that were becoming more willing to challenge music video conception for metal and be goofy, be silly, be fun. And I think that not only for metalcore and deathcore, but for other metal subgenres, this really did push forward the loudness war aesthetic, because Infant Annihilator gained that steam doing that, and whenever something gets popular, you're not only going to have copycats who just want a cheap cash in and clickbait for what works and following the pattern and formula that has been proven to work, but you're also going to get people who put their own creative spins on it. So you have offshoots like Lorna Shore, which are very choir and orchestral instrumentation based, and so you're getting the breakdowns that are not too unlike what you would have gotten from Infant Annihilator's music, but it's combined with this orchestral and theatrical melodrama, and that's really interesting to me. I think Infant Annihilator also very much influenced the usage of crazy fucking vocals, and this is something that's less Infant Annihilator's doing, but I think it's also something that came a lot from them. Metal vocalists have always tried to up the ante with just how vile and how grotesque they can be, but Infant Annihilator really did popularize a lot of just the grotesque, layered, fucking 7-layer guttural growl, shriek, scream, banshee wail all at the same time, and that kind of goes hand in hand with how they approach loudness and distortion and heaviness and brutality, to where people's expectations with metalcore and deathcore, and I think this could also be a good or bad thing, people became very desensitized and formed an expectation of what metal really was in that sphere, and they expect it to have the call out, the breakdown, and if it doesn't hit to the same degree, it's automatically held to a lesser standard because there's already been something that has been heavier. And I think that's one big reason that Infant Annihilator quote unquote fell off over time, in terms of, like, take that with a grain of salt, I mean, like, not as popular as they once were. I think it's because they reached sort of a plateau, and bands will always reach this plateau where you hit that wall and there's not anything you can do creatively to really outsell yourself. And I would worry that, like, Lorna Shore might have this issue eventually, where is there going to come a point where you can't get heavier, you can't layer your grotesque vocals anymore, you can't make the production more massive. And I think that is the biggest issue with bands like this, and it's great music to listen to and it's fun and the brutality level is off the fucking chain, but you also have to account for the fact that you're gonna reach that point where you hit that plateau and you bash into that wall and there's nowhere else to go, because you've already seen what's under the carpet, what's in the closet, what's on the table, what's in the bed, and you no longer have these creative avenues because you've already pulled out all your bags of tricks trying to reach the new height and get that notoriety and get that publicity. So you get popular off of the extremity and intensity that you pose as a band, but you can't go past that, and so you are going to fall prey to either being stuck in a position where you have to change your style and potentially disenfranchise your listeners, or release something that could be seen as inferior or mediocre because it doesn't hit the same as the thing that made you blow up in the first place. And I think it's a very weird dichotomy and really interesting to talk about, but I would love to hear what your guys' opinions are of this topic and Infant Annihilator in the greater metal sphere. You can let me know down in the comment section below. There is no wrong answer, and I would love to discuss it with you. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to join the review family today, and smash that notification bell to be notified of my future uploads. You know who it is, my name is Jay Morris, and I'm signing off saying farewell.